control is how you react to the things that go on around you and how you're ready to react when they do happen. So, Jim, could you kind of share with our crowd today how that fits into your daily routine and your planning and your thought as you anticipate your way through 46 million already year to date?
Yeah, sure. I appreciate you guys having me on. I said before I get into that, let's keep it real, you guys. I spent the first 11 months of my employment here, and I've been here almost 3 years, just doing my sales activities and looking at a pipeline of 3 or 4 loans and just wondering if I was going to make it happen. And I come from a mortgage background, a title background, a wholesale mortgage background, and so and I'm very competitive, and I like to think that I'm personable. So I thought I'm going to be really good at this. But little did I know, 10 months in, I wasn't very good at this. However, I was being told that I was doing all the right things. And so for those of you who are struggling, feel free to reach out to me anytime you want. Secondly, hang in there, confirm with your manager that they believe you're doing all the right sales activities, because it takes time. I mean, you can't come into this business and all of a sudden you're like somebody's mortgage professional. You're the expert now. When they knew me in title or they knew me on the wholesale side. So it took time, but it did start, obviously, the wheel started turning. And getting to your point now, at the stage that I'm in, Mike, you're exactly right. I mean, for you to be closing 10, 20, 30 loans a month, you've got to make sure that everything's tight, and you have a process in place. And for me, I pride myself on asking the right questions, making sure that when I've got this customer either on the phone in front of me, that I'm making sure that I'm asking all the questions that can create roadblocks. And let me tell you, I learn something new maybe not every transaction, but I learn something new probably every 3 or 4 transactions. Like, I better make sure I remember that and ask that next time. And so, because that's so important, because then when you don't ask the question and something pops up, and then like you said, Mike, again, you got to pick up the phone. You got to just fess up. Hey, listen, I didn't ask for this, or I forgot about this. Can you just get this for me, and we'll keep your file moving forward? And you try and make sure that doesn't happen. And when you do that, this job becomes a lot less stressful. I spend an hour of my day in the morning sorting my view on my Encompass from my close date to the latest close date, and I go through a checklist. Do I need to order an appraisal? Is my rate locked? Is title requested? Is homeowners insurance requested? And as we get closer to that 3 days, do we have final approval? If we don't have final approval, why don't we have final approval? And do we need to get the CD out 3 days prior, obviously? And so it's just making sure, no matter how much great support you have from your sales assistants or your processors, at the end of the day, it's your responsibility as a loan officer to make sure that you keep an eye on all those balls. And then after you've done that for an hour, you send out your emails, then you can get back to some sales activities, writing some thank you cards, and doing some of that stuff. But I always find when I remove myself for a day or two, because God forbid we take a vacation, it takes me a few days to get my head back in the game. And I hate that feeling. That's the only thing. I hate that feeling of not knowing what's going on with my pipeline. And then read your DU findings. I had a thin credit file. There's like 3 or 4 of the things you gotta collect. Well, I didn't read my DU findings. We get to the 11th hour, and I gotta get like 5. I gotta get the 3 more things, and we got it, but it was very stressful. And I learned from that I gotta make sure I'm reading those DU findings. Just because you see approved eligible, oh great, let's move it on. Because 99% of the time you're gonna ask for the exact same documentation, but not on a thin credit file. I had a manual underwrite. I went through a manual underwrite, and little did I know that there's 5 things that I didn't know about, and that was a lesson learned. And that was tough, and I hate that. I hate it when the clients are relying on you, and you're at the 11th hour and you're scrambling. It's the worst feeling ever. And for loan officers that are unorganized, that experience that more often, I can see why this job is very stressful for you. So those are the things that as you get more seasoned as a loan officer, you got to learn to really love this job. You got to embrace it. Mike, I can't remember what you said, but you hit the nail on the head. It's just as far as just addressing issues when they come up, how you react to the staff. How do you treat your processor? How do you treat your sales assistant? What do those emails look like? And what's your tone in an email? Hey, can you just look at this for me? Just double check. I'm not really sure. Here's how I calculate the income. I don't know if it's right, even though I know it's right. And then they review it and they go, oh my gosh, you're right, Jim, I missed that. Rather than saying, hey, where are you coming up with this income? I don't get it. There's just ways to go about it and to treat people the way you want to be treated, and then they'll work twice as hard for you coming back. So those are the things that I kind of live by. I know I'm kind of rambling on, but, I just want to keep it real. Loan officers get out and tell you what they do every day, but I just want to let you know I've been there. It's not easy. And so even I try every day, even now, I'm still learning every day, but trying to manage my pipeline the way that I just described.
Jim, great comment. Kimmy, would you put page 3 on, please? Go ahead, Sean, because I want us to kind of go through some of these things with Jim also and get his take on some of this.
No, but Jim, I just want to thank you. Mike, this really goes off for those that had the opportunity to attend last week's summit. It was fantastic. And one of the overarching themes that I heard from a lot of our loan officers was being prepared, being organized. Maybe being organized is just having a checklist. That's what I learned from Missy out of Fort Smith. How do I make sure that I'm getting my stuff done? She just starts out with a task list. And then the other thing, Jim, that you talked about, which we heard last week, from some of the top loan officers, have the hard conversations. Make sure you're asking the right questions up front and constantly be learning. Every situation, you have an opportunity to learn, whether it's a customer experience or it's an underwriting guideline, or right now with self-employed borrowers, understanding the things that you're going to need. Anticipate, I'm at a 75-day lot. I'm going to tell that customer, guess what? I'm going to need a couple pay stubs. I know I'm going to ask you to send me everything in today, but I'm going to need a couple more of those before we close, just so you know that we're going to need these extra documents, so that they're not thinking, I sent you everything, and they're calling, why are you asking for this? Because I anticipated knowing that we're going to need these extra docs throughout this process. That customer has the right expectations set. So, Jim, great conversation. Thank you.
And Jim, I heard you not say these exact words, but pretty close. If you look on page 3, I put 3 requirements that you have to succeed in our business, in what you're doing. Be a subject matter expert who never stops learning. And I heard you say you learn something every day. Well, I can guarantee you I learn something every day, and I've been in this business most of my life. Drawing from personal experience and the advice of trusted mentors, people that you trust and respect, and then being unselfish to actually be dedicated to help others achieve their goals. So when I've talked to you over the years, Jim, these are the things I think about, kind of what kind of a guy you are and how your thought process. Anything you could add to those 3 bullet points?
Well, as far as the first one, I instead of digging my head into the manual of underwriting guidelines, I was, putting the net out there in sales activities. So first and foremost, I was trying to drum up business. I wasn't necessarily an expert, but I knew how to go find the answers. I knew who to ask, and if I didn't, I'd ask Jason or ask Jared, and they would steer me in the right direction. So subject matter expert, I knew the mortgage industry because that's where I came from before title, but I put that second to my sales activities, and now as I'm doing more deals, I am becoming a subject matter expert. And if I don't know something, I tell them, hey, I don't know that. Let me find out for you. And then the mentors, I said, without Jason and Jared, I wouldn't be here. I would for sure with Jared, because he's the one that recruited me from Continental Title, but and then Jason's support, I would not be here without my mentors. And now that I have a team, so, I spent 2.5 years just as a loan officer. I've been promoted to a supervisor where I have some people underneath me. And it's a really neat feeling when I can help coach them and guide them. Now they got to go out and do the activities themselves, and hopefully they are. And but it is nice to be able to be a producer, to achieve my goals, and then hopefully, because I've got some associate lender and some new people, to see them hit their goals. I just love it. I mean, I love, and I'm not saying that just to say that. You know, it is the best job ever once you get the flywheel turning. Once you get that turning and you start seeing your income coming in, and you're helping people get a mortgage loan at great programs at great rates, and you get paid for it. What could be better?
I couldn't
You know,
agree.
great point that you said there, and I would ask everyone on the call, who is your mentor? Who is it that you go to that's in your profession that you can talk to, that you can vent or ask questions to? If you don't have someone, you probably need to find someone, because you cannot continue to get better being in your own bubble. It takes people together, working together, really to help you go to that next level. And Jim, I think that's a big point of, you didn't do it by yourself. Now, you had to get out there, you knew what you had to drive, but you had a team of folks and mentors that you could go to ask questions, to make yourself where you're at today.
Right.
And before we dive into this last piece, I think Stephen's hopped on. Stephen, did you have a comment or a question for Jim? Stephen, are you on?
You're on mute, Stephen.
No, just enjoying hearing Jim's words. Appreciate Jim being on today.
Absolutely, thanks.
Well, when you look into this next part, I'm having a little fun with it, calling it the job description. But really, this is where the anticipatory word really comes into play, guys. Listening carefully and really understanding both the customer and the transaction up front, taking the time up front to make sure that we're putting people in the best program that's going to meet their goals. And then here's really important. Once you go deep and thoroughly understand that customer and that transaction, Jim, talk about how many times you can have those deep discussions, and then you can analyze all the things going on in your mind that might happen so you can avoid allowing them to happen.
Well, I just had, and this is a real fundamental one, but I just had two clients in my office, husband and wife, and he's retired, and made sure that his retirement was from an IRA account, and it was, and I asked him, please bring in your retirement account, all pages, 2 months worth, if they do monthly statements. I need to source where it's going to, 2 months, all pages. And so he shows up, and he has his retirement statement, page 9 of 14, and then he has his going into his bank account, page 7 of 12. And I'm like, okay, here's what I'm going to need from you. I'm going to need 2 months of both those statements, all pages. Why do you need all pages? I said, because it's a requirement that we want to look at a 2-month history and see if there's any large deposits or withdrawals, or there's anything, crazy. And if the last 2 or 3 pages are blank, I need those too. Well, that's ridiculous. That's the most insane thing. And I said, well, Bill, here's the deal. I can go ahead and submit this the way it is, but what's going to happen 2-3 weeks from now or 2 weeks from now, my processor is going to say, I need 2 months, all pages. So you either just provide those to me now and we'll ease this pain, or I'll go ahead and submit it and we can deal with the pain later, whatever you want to do. Why would you need the last 3 pages blank? I said, well, how do I know the last 3 pages are blank if you don't provide them to me? And the wife was like, that's a good point. I said, hey, this is really easy, Bill. You just log in and I can help you and show you how to get it. And then finally he calmed down, but that's just an example. That's a real small example. Now I have some self-employed one. He had 12 businesses. And I basically said, Ahmed, this is going to be like giving me your firstborn, okay? And I'm just telling you, okay, this is going to be really painful. Are you ready for this? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, all right, here's what we're digging into S Corp, we're digging into K1s, we're digging into, year-to-date profit and loss. And it was like giving his firstborn, and he admitted that when he was done, but at least through the process, he didn't get upset or angry with me because I had already set the expectation that this was going to be extremely painful. And as long as you're setting those expectations and communicating with people, they can't get that angry with you, because if you don't set those expectations, and then they get really angry because we didn't have that initial discussion.
Jim, one other thing I want you to touch on. is I'm saying always have a realistic plan B if there's any chance at all that plan A might get derailed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if we're tight on debt ratio, I may price out FHA and see what FHA would look like to see if that was an option. If we have questionable, I don't know, let's say that they have the ability to put 15% down. I always know that the standard in-house products there in case, appraisal maybe isn't pending approved or whatever it might be. But you're exactly right, Mike. I'm thinking, hey, if this doesn't work, we could go this way. And so you do have that plan B in the back of your head. You may not discuss that with the client unless you're showing them two programs. But, I preach that to real estate agents. I say, listen, just understand with me, if the deal falls out Fannie Freddie, we've got standard in-house. Most lenders don't have portfolio products that we can fall back on. So instead of going, this lender, and then if something happens, you got to come to me, all we have to do is flip it to standard in-house, and now we've got option B, where most lenders on the street don't. Would that make sense for us to have coffee? If that was an initial discussion, and 100% of the time, I've never gotten a no from anybody, because why would you not want to learn more about products that we offer that no one else does?
It's just a matter of being prepared for something just in case it does go wrong.
Right.
When you're prepared, then you deal with it, and everyone finds it to be seamless. Sean?
And the last thing, and this is at a very fundamental level, and I don't know how the other top producers do it, but I really, like I said, when I look at my files, I look at when you put a file in, it's started, right, guys? And then once you fill in all the blue fields, it goes to qualification. I mean, that should happen in same day or less than a day, okay? After qualification, then your sales assistant is going to, and if you've got everything in the R drive, I pride myself on income docs, driver's license, income calculation, everything I need up front. When I start a file, 98% of the time is in the R drive. That way my assistant, I look and see, okay, 4 days later, how come it hasn't been sent to the operations? Because there's only, some tasks that they have to do. Disclosures have to get signed, but anyway, so then it goes to submittal, conditional approval, resubmittal approval. Just keep an eye on your files. Because Jason will send out emails, and I'll see some of my guys, like, the file's been started for 2 weeks. What's up with that? Or it gets qualified, it hasn't been sent to ops, and then it gets to ops. And then it's all of a sudden an ops problem that this file's closing in 2 weeks. And I was like, no, it's your problem. It's your problem. It took you 2 weeks to get that file to operations, or 3 weeks. Okay, don't put that on them. And so it's important that we just watch those files move, let the process happen. But if something's getting hung up, you got to dig in and figure out what's going on. Because once again, it falls back onto you as the loan officer.
So just kind of really anticipate, make sure that you have a disciplined process,
Yep.
good communication, and I mean those are really basic skills to really keep you successful. I mean, Jim, it's what's led to your success, and as we talked to Missy last week, or Brian, or Caitlin, James, as we talked to all those folks last week on that summit, that basically to theme it up, that's exactly what they said. Mike, I want to take a little bit of different. Right now we're in the middle of budget season, so a lot of your mortgage managers are asking you, what am I going to do next year? And I want to get you guys thinking outside the box, thinking about my business. Why am I in the mortgage business? Why is it that I do what I do? Is it, because I help somebody get a lower interest rate, or am I in the business of helping people? Understanding your why, number one, will help you anticipate the future. And I'll give you an example of this. Kodak, out there, they created the first digital camera. They should have been owning that business. And that's what Kodak thought. They thought they were in the film business. They didn't anticipate that they were in the memory making business. And if you don't know your why, that can get you off track. I want to talk about a couple other companies real quick that anticipated. Amazon, we all look at Amazon, and Amazon was a book company. I remember driving through Coffeyville, and they used to have a huge distribution center there where books were going all over the world. If Amazon had just focused and didn't get out of being a bookstore, now half the boxes coming to my house 3 times a day would not be coming from Amazon. I mean, they are now they are the largest online retailer. Speaking of Amazon, I thought they were so crazy. crazy that talking about they were going to start delivering from hovercrafts, and just the other day I'm seeing that they're delivering medicine and stuff from these little hovercrafts and stuff. So the thing I want you guys to think about is think about your business. Anticipate for the future. Understand your why, and then how is that going to take me to tomorrow? Because everything you're doing right now, it's diminishing returns unless you figure out a new way to stay involved. Example of that, we've got some new technology coming out there. 6 months ago, half of our apps were taken in person. Now 70% of our apps are taken online. You guys have moved, but did you anticipate that, or was it out of necessity you forced? What if you could have been ahead of that curve? So just kind of go back to that quote from Wayne Gretzky. What he talked about there of being where the puck is. He knows where that puck is going to be, and that's where he plans to be. And that's what I'm going to ask you guys to challenge yourself. Anticipate the future. Know where you're at today. You can anticipate the loan file, but anticipate next year. There are loan officers that have a record year like this, and then they just keep going up no matter what the market does. What loan officer are you going to be determining? Is it determined by what interest rates are? Or is it determined by what you've created in your business plan, and you said today, I'm not going backwards? So anyway, guys, I appreciate everyone getting on the call. Jim, any last words from you? I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to get on this.
No, giving me this opportunity gets me all juiced up, to get back in some more sales activities, which we tend to shy away from when we get busy with loan files. So thanks for having me.
Jim, just one last thing I want to mention. You said it earlier in your message today. The last thing on here, maintain a routine follow-up. Even though you're busy, even though you're spending all the time doing all the things you are, I heard you also talk about when you have the right time, you're doing thank yous and cards and sending things out, because you also recognize that you don't anticipate people's needs in the future and keep in touch. They may go somewhere else. You want to just quickly touch on how important that is to you.
Well, I would also lastly, I guess, say ask for referrals. I'm doing a lot of 30-day follow-up now because a lot of my clients were either missing their first payment or they didn't realize their auto withdrawal wasn't set up, and so I've made it a double point to just follow up. Hey, do you have your ACH set up? Do you need help? Do you need to open a bank account? You look at my referrals to the bank, it's only because I make it a point to ask them, hey, would you like to bank with us? Hey, would you like a HELOC? Hey, we have this other consumer unsecured loan. And then I just put it in RB and I send it to whoever I need to send it to. But then getting back, I ask for referrals. Hey, listen, Sean, if you could, did anybody hopefully you had a great experience with me, please keep me in mind, and then I get their birthday, they'll get a birthday card from me every year and all that stuff. So it's ask for the referrals, stay in front of them, and do a good job.
Thanks again, Jim.
Yeah, I want to be cognizant of everyone's time. That was one thing that I picked up in our little breakout group in that summit last week was there are a lot of things we know we should do we've gotten out of because we're busy. You can't get out of it because the things that you do today set you apart